Cocoa Beach is your ultimate Florida beach vacation. Pack your bags and open your mind. Adventure is calling from Orlando's closest beach. Cocoa Beach is Florida's secret gem that's got it all. It's the budget-friendly, retro-cool destination that families and surfers adore. Come soak up the sun and ride the East Coast's most famous waves. Start planning your one-of-a-kind getaway now at visitspacecoast.com. That's visitspacecoast.com.
Hello and welcome to History for Weirdos.
We're your hosts, Andrew
and Stephanie.
And each week, we're going to take you on a journey into the strange, obscure, and relentlessly entertaining corners of human history.
Now listen up, friends, because it's about to get weird. Welcome to episode 60 of History for Weirdos.
And we're back. We're glad to be back, as always.
Always glad to be in your ears and your minds.
Not to be creepy or anything.
No, not in a creepy way, in a very friendly, non-creepy way. Anyway, I hate when I have to start the episode.
I love it, actually, because usually that's when, the weird stuff comes out.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, now that we're in your ears, Andrew, it's your week to share with us a weird history episode.
And that I shall do. But before I get into it,
yes,
I just want to make actually one quick announcement.
Oh.
If you haven't followed us on our Instagram page at History for Weirdos, you guys should do so. We usually say at the end, but...
Oh, that's a good point. We usually say it at the end, but that's true. We have our Instagram, and every once in a while we post, updates on there.
Right.
You just get to see a little bit more about, us and, random stuff that we do sometimes, as well as the images from the episodes.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes we do announce that, we're not going to have an episode,
right,
that week or something like that, obviously.
Or if it's delayed or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that's just usually the easiest way to keep up with, updates on the show.
Very true. Well said, babe. Good announcement.
Yes, quant.
Okay. Were you successful in finding a spooky-themed story?
You know what? As a matter of fact, I was successful.
Oh, good. Were you
Yes.
really?
No, I really was.
Okay,
I swear.
Andrew was giving me some ideas for his spooky episodes, and they weren't spooky at all. They were just kind of depressing.
And tragic.
Yeah.
So
I was no, spooky.
This one's
not
spooky
tragic.
and tragic.
Good.
No, this one's spooky as hell. It's actually terrifying.
Tell us.
So actually, you might be too scared for this.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I'm of course going to be continuing the trend of spookiness for October. And we're going to actually cover one of the most haunted places in the entire world.
Hotel California?
Way worse. And literally, and I actually mean that way, way, way worse. Okay, we're actually going to be traveling to Venice, Italy.
Oh.
To an island in the Venetian lagoon. And yes, that body of water, by the way, that Venice is in, is a lagoon, in case you didn't know.
I had no idea.
I didn't know either until I really researched this episode, actually, funny enough.
We're so cultured.
A lagoon is a body of water separated from larger bodies of water by, a natural barrier. And in this case, it's a lido, a little, peninsula, I guess.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know any of these things. I didn't know the definition of a lagoon or that Venice was in a lagoon.
Exactly. I know. Now you know. The more you know. This episode is just full of fun facts, as well as tragic happenstance too. So
much to look forward to.
So much to look forward to. So we're gonna be looking at a tiny island by the name of Poveglia, and that is spelled Poveglia. So it looks like Poveglia for us Americans.
Yeah, but it's Poveglia?
Yeah, Poveglia or Poveglia.
Poveglia?
Might be Poveglia. I'm gonna go with Poveglia.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Poveglia. The island today is really small. It's 18 acres, and it's pretty easy to miss. But get this. This tiny island has at least 100,000 bodies buried within it.
Oh my god.
At least some estimates go to as high as 160,000.
What?
Yes.
Gulp.
Yeah. Some scientists estimate that the soil contains up to 50% human remains.
Oh, that's not cute. That's not fun.
No.
Definitely don't drink the tap water there.
Yeah, no. Which, to be honest, that just boggles my mind. Like, I can't even comprehend that. Like, that's just so insane to me. But anyways, let's dive into why this place is haunted. And
I'm guessing it's those bodies. What are you talking about?
But like how? It's not like 160,000 people don't randomly show up to like an island the size of like, I don't know what 18 acres is, but it's small.
Yeah,
it's small. But anyways, so in order to dive back into the history, we have to go way back. In fact, all the way back to the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Let's go. It's short though.
Okay.
The ancient history is very short. It's basically this island. It first entered the historical record in the early 400s AD.
Okay.
By the way, not a great time for Romans, especially the Western Romans, because barbarian invasions are just like coming in full force.
Right.
Specifically the Goths, the Vandals, and the Huns. They just ravaged Italy during this time period. And fun fact, the Germanic tribe Vandals is where we get the term like to vandalize something.
Oh my gosh.
Because they sacked Rome during roughly this time period.
That is a fun fact.
Yeah, and it's weird because they weren't even the first Germanic tribe to sack Rome during this time period. But I think they did it pretty like harshly, whereas the first one they just kind of like looted some stuff and got out. These guys like really like kind of went in and destroyed a lot of stuff just because they were being malevolent. But anyways, it's not really part of the episode, but I'm always like happy to bring up Roman history.
We know.
Everyone knows. I know. It's ridiculous. But, basically, I bring up all this Roman stuff just to say that, like, refugees starting 421 AD fled to this island to escape the barbarians. And, like, they kind of lived in their own community for centuries.
I guess that makes sense. It's smart.
Yeah.
No one's going to bother you there.
And we don't really know a lot more, like, during this time frame, like, a lot more because there's just... No records. I mean, even the story of Venice, right? We don't really know how it started. There's historical evidence, and then there's kind of like legendary evidence, and they sometimes overlap, sometimes don't. So it's shrouded in mystery. But the next time it enters the historical record is actually in the early 800s.
That's a big chunk of time.
Yeah, we're gonna jump forward. Early Middle Ages. The Franks, ironically, another like Germanic tribe. Well, there was really more of a super confederation. They were at war against the nascent Republic of Venice, and the Poveglians aligned themselves with the Venetians in this war, and they actually proved to be quite valiant, I guess, for lack of a better term. They were very courageous, and they proved themselves as warriors, and they were granted special privileges by the Republic, including being exempt from taxation and military service.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, and they actually, the island thrived for quite a bit of time, interestingly. I know, it starts off as, almost yay, go us for quite a while. In fact, starting in the 1800s for the next, 500 years. They're kicking butt. But the island was abandoned and ravaged by an invading army.
Oh.
So, the citizens, though, they evacuated to Venice itself, and they actually continued to have a thriving community within the city.
Okay.
Yeah, so they ended up being fine, and we're not really going to talk about the Poveglians that left at this point in time, but just know that they ended up being happy and whatever. So
they lived happily ever after. You promise?
Sure. Anyways, so the island would, though, starting from this point on, would just have issues continuously, even to this day. So it's unclear exactly when the island lost its last inhabitants before being resettled once more, but except we just know it was sometime during probably the early 1300s. We do know that in the 14th century, though, the Venetians built a fort on the island to serve as a defensive outpost.
They loved forts back then.
They loved forts. In fact, there is a bell tower that was created, I think, during this time that still stands to this day.
Wow.
Unlike, though, in the time of the Roman Republic and Empire, Italy or especially the late Roman Republic and Roman Empire, Italy was really politically fragmented at this point in time. So, hence the defensive outpost. Venice was one of the stronger powers at that time due to its strong commercial enterprises. So it obviously just would make sense that it would defend, they'd create like a fort here, kind of on the outer perimeter to defend the city.
Okay.
But, the reason why I bring this up is because there are enemies, back then and even today that you just can't defend against. At least not in traditional ways. Enter the bubonic plague.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and this is when it just starts going downhill. Like, really starts going downhill.
Plagues are not known to be fun.
No, they're not. They're not fun. Typically, no. So, the first plague hit in 1348 and killed, like, half the population of Venice.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, 50% out of there. And, like, it was a pretty big city for the time. Like, population of, like, roughly 150,000 people. So, 75,000 people died.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Again, we don't have exact numbers. These are just like guesstimates. Obviously not the greatest of times at this point in time. And here's the thing though. Venice would be hit with the plague at least another 69 times between, this time, 1348 and 1800.
Oh my God. You know what's interesting? Is when you say like bubonic plague, I do think of Venice. That's one of the first cities that pops up.
Yeah, and it's probably because like it was a big maritime power of the Mediterranean during this portion of time.
And
so
I
it
think
makes
of
sense.
Those masks that they sell.
Yes, the creepy bird masks.
Yeah.
Oh God, so freaking creepy. So, anyways, needless to say, Venice starts developing systems for like treating people with the plague, right? Because it just keeps on happening. So there were 2 hospitals set up on other islands that would house and treat the affected, around like starting in like the early 1400s.
Okay.
Ships would take the sick to those hospitals as a way to treat victims and, quarantine at the same time. Another fun fact, we actually get the word quarantine from this time period.
What?
As the sick had to spend 40 days away from people. In Italian, 40 is quaranta.
Yeah.
So, hence quarantine.
Yeah.
Comes from this.
Cuarentena, same in Spanish, yeah.
Yeah. And
oh my gosh, that's nuts.
they're Romance languages, which comes from the Romans. Okay, there we go. Moving on. So, starting the 16th century, the hospitals couldn't keep up with the amount of people. Like, the demand was too high, which is not a good thing. So, ships started being directed towards, you guessed it, Poveglia. Here's the disturbing part, though. There wasn't, like, a hospital there, per se. Or there was, but, like, it wasn't the same as others. It was basically just beds for sick people. And it was more or less like a death sentence.
Oh, no. So, yeah, they were just sending you there to...
Pretty much to die.
To die and not get other people sick.
Right. Like, and if you lived, you lived. But it was pretty gross.
Boy.
And in fact, like, 16th century chronicler Rocco Benedetti, he said that quote, it looked like hell, like describing Poveglia, or Poveglia, sorry. The sick lay 3 to 4 per bed.
That's, oh my God.
So it was a disturbing sight to say.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. And, when the victims died, the bodies were just thrown in mass graves and or cremated.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's... Like, even, like, throughout the centuries, people would just keep on discovering, like, more mass graves. And it was...
That's literally hell.
Again, 50% of the soil being, like, made of human remains,
That's disgusting.
Yeah. And so, again, that's how that happened. Interesting, though, around this time, a rumor started to spread that vampires were feasting on the remains of people on Poveglia.
Thank God. I was really hoping some vampires would come into
so,
play.
of course, right? This was due to corpses sometimes oozing blood from mouths due to their intestinal tracts, like, literally exploding due to composition gases expanding.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So they're...
And people didn't understand the science at the time, so hence vamps, You
know why they didn't understand the science? Because the Catholic Church... Sorry, Mom and Dad. The Catholic Church was not down with the science.
Right.
They didn't want people studying human anatomy.
I know.
But if they had, they probably would have understood, like, oh, we have these intestines and these must have blown up in there.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So, And again, yeah, it kind of just gave the place just even a more like macabre presence. That
Absolutely.
And yeah, and guess what, guys? It only gets worse.
It sounds like the place of nightmares.
Yeah, it literally is. Literally, we'll actually get to that towards the end. So this process of quarantine like would just continue for centuries, and in fact, like it became so happenstance that like weirdly it took up until 1776. Go America! To I know,
sure
right?
The two are connected.
I know, totally connected. So yeah, like in 1776, Poveglia came under the jurisdiction of the Venetian Public Health Office and like became like an official checkpoint for all goods and people coming into and from Venice.
Okay.
Like specifically by ship. And so, like America was founded in 1776. Coincidence? I think not.
Probably. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we'll agree to disagree. So it's weird though because like it took so long for it to be established.
Yes.
But then the final ship that came into Poveglia, like as a like quarantine station, was in 1799, a Spanish ship.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, like
It didn't last long.
Yeah, it didn't really last long, like as an official, but it I guess unofficially lasted for centuries. It's really weird. And you know what's weird? Like I feel like this story, like this sub story within the greater story, could be its own episode because it's just creepy. So I'm just going to do a really quick summary here, but basically, all the passengers on this ship either went insane or died, except for one boy. And this boy was happened to be stationed like as a guard of sorts on the ship, while the rest of the crew took refuge on the island in one of the buildings like during their quarantine like session, right?
Okay, yeah.
And he would visit them daily until one night he heard strange and frightening noises from the woods behind the building. Like shortly after he heard the screams from his fellow Marines, but just being too scared, he didn't have the courage to leave the ship like at all.
Yeah.
I don't blame him, especially being a young boy. Oh hell no. So the morning after though, he found them all in one room, all 23 people who were still alive. They were close together, mumbling like incoherent phrases, so often in a language that just wasn't Spanish or any sort of Italian dialect.
What the heck?
Yeah, I couldn't find any more beyond that, which was annoying because I'm like, what the hell? But yeah, so that was the story of the last ship to dock in Poveglia.
That could be its own like horror movie or novel or something.
Absolutely.
Like that sounds like just the start of the story.
Right.
That's crazy.
And then so like after this incident, the island became quickly abandoned, but not before the church on the island, the Church of San Vitale, was destroyed under orders by none other than Napoleon Bonaparte.
What?
Yeah, I know, so random. I was like, that's so crazy. But, if the story of, like, Poveglia, like, ended here, like, that would be creepy as hell.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate place.
But it doesn't. We have to fast forward another 100 years to 1922.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so Mussolini had just risen to power, and the authorities, in their infinite wisdom, decided to turn one of the surviving buildings on the island into an insane asylum.
Ay, Dios, why do they always gotta do that?
Like, plague-infected island, or
like
quarantine
with tons
station.
Of bodies.
Like, literally over 100,000 bodies.
The last ship there, the crew went mad, like...
Insane asylum. Because that makes sense, right?
I think that makes sense.
I know, it's you can't, like, make this up. Like, if someone were to write a story about this, like, and like, if this didn't happen and they just wrote, like, verbatim what actually happened in reality, they'd be like, no, that's stupid. There's no way that would happen.
They'd be like, that's lazy writing.
That's lazy writing. Exactly. Exactly. So, this place, like, if it wasn't already the place of nightmares, which it literally was, like, it is for sure now the place of nightmares, especially for, what I'm about to tell you. Before I get into that, there are pictures from the late 19th and early 20th century, but right before the insane asylum was created. Mm-hmm. There's pictures that depict, visitors to the island, like, playing around with, like, plague equipment that was left behind.
No!
It's like, dude, why would you? Why? Oh, my God. People have always been stupid. That's I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Like, I don't care if it's been, like, abandoned for, like, 80 years or whatever. Like, no.
Oh my gosh, that's a really good, like, summation of some of the things that we learn in these podcast episodes is that people have always been stupid.
Yes, seriously. People be stupid, yo.
Yeah.
You can quote me on that. A few years after the hospital opened, a surgeon arrived to the island who could only be described as a monster. So we don't even know his name because records of him were lost, like, during World War II.
Okay.
But he would perform lobotomies on patients without the use of anesthetics, as they didn't exist at the time.
What a sick, sick man.
Yeah. And also, before I actually even get into it a little bit more, like, some of this is, like, it's hard to depict, like, what's legend and what's actual reality.
Right.
So I'm just kind of describing it as it is, and, you know, you can kind of, like, pick and choose what you think is real and what is not. But I'm just going to present it as fact, just to make it more simple. But I just want to give that disclaimer. So, and again, so he performed lobotomies on people without the use of anesthetics that didn't exist, and this was deemed as fine because people were mentally ill, and, you know, this was a fascist regime, like, literally a fascist regime.
They didn't
These
care.
people were expendable. They didn't care. Like, yeah.
And that's, you know, obviously this was a literal fascist regime, but that's unfortunately the history of a lot of mental hospitals throughout the world, right? We have often seen people with more severe mental illness as expendable, and they were just not good places. Like, lobotomies were performed. Lobotomies obviously have no benefit, we now know.
Right.
You know, the electroconvulsive therapy, all these, I mean, people were abused. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
And it almost makes sense that this awful place would attract, like, such a monster to
seriously.
come and hurt these humans.
It really, no, you're absolutely right. Well, but don't worry, because his story does not end well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, not to worry, folks. It was reported that he started to see things, and in 1942, apparently, an entity told him to climb to the top of a bell tower, that very same bell tower that I mentioned earlier, and jump to his death. And the weird thing is that he didn't die right away. Again, according to legend, apparently a fog layer came in and, like, covered his, like, you know, his dying body, and, like, it basically choked him to death.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Again, I have to say this is according to legend. We're kind of blending myth and history here, but I just wanted to, you know, say that at least as part of the history, this is the legend that surrounds the place.
That's a very spooky scene.
Yeah, very spooky.
This is so interesting. I wonder, because obviously mental illness isn't contagious.
Right.
What happened to him that he started to see and hear things?
I don't know.
Or I wonder if there's some sort of, like, a virus in the brain or something.
Who knows?
Something else was making people sick, and he caught it.
Right.
You know how it's terrible? You unfortunately hear those stories, usually in the summer, of, like, young people or families going swimming in bodies of water.
Oh, yeah, and then getting, like, a brain eating amoeba or something like that.
Yeah. I wonder if there was something in the water like that.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That's very good.
So interesting, so spooky.
But even, honestly, like, despite the horrifying behavior of the surgeon, you know, the place was just spooky to staff and to patients alike. You know, during all the years that it, like, from 1922 when it was established, like, onwards, the patients as well as nurses and other doctors had complained about strange movements, lights, and voices. But as the patients were mentally ill, nobody gave a crap about what they said.
Oh, that's so true.
And the staff didn't want to be associated with, you know, any sort of dubious activity on the island.
Yes.
The hospital finally closed its doors in 1968, and after a brief stint as a geriatric center...
Oh my god.
I know, right?
Why do they keep trying to put people there?
I don't know. And again, people who are viewed as, like, expendable, right?
Yes.
Like, mentally ill, and now the olds.
And prior to the mentally ill, the people with plague that didn't seem treatable.
Seriously. So the island finally closed its doors and has been abandoned since 1975, yet again.
Oh my god.
Yes, the island, it's forbidden to go for locals and tourists, And even fishermen, like, stay away from the island, even if it wasn't, prohibited, just because they say it's truly cursed.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of, like...
I think that's fact.
Yeah, that's fact. Well, we can say that's fact. So people claim to hear screams and moans from the island constantly. It's like a daily occurrence. It's not even a thing. It's not even like a big thing anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, that's...
Yeah, like people aren't spooked. They're like, oh, it's just the island over there.
Yeah, just stay the hell away from it. And spirits and other supernatural incarnations, I guess, can be seen on a regular occurrence. The bell can even be heard, even though it has been... it's been removed for decades now.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So and even, there are particular spirits that people have seen.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's one that's been dubbed Little Maria, and she's been documented as being seen on this island over the course of 400 years.
Holy shit.
People saying the same thing over 400-year period.
Reporting the same
little girl who just cries and, walks around the island.
Oh, my God.
And if you visit, the hospital in particular, you'll hear footsteps, wheelchairs, voices. You'll see faces sometimes through glass. Even, shadows following you. Not your shadow, but another shadow, following you. Yeah, creepy stuff. And even if you don't experience anything supernatural, almost every visitor just gets this feeling of extreme dread and sorrow.
Oh, which is, I'm sure, what people felt there.
Right, exactly. Again, that's kind of that's unsurprising.
So spooky. Yeah, it's okay. Well, we've talked about this before. History for Weirdos, fam. I'm Mexican, okay? I'm very superstitious. Totally believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
I'm Catholic. My dad's family is also Irish American. To me, this is all facts, okay?
I know, I'm trying to have a nuanced approach to it, and you're like, no, it is fact.
But for those of us who may be less superstitious, less ghostly inclined, I would think that, and even this is, I guess, kind of out there, but I feel like certain places do have an energy to them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that,
And this place has just been a place of despair.
I mean, yeah, if the soil is 50% human remains,
Jeez.
there has to be biological things, maybe things we don't even understand yet, that just
or just your animal intuition being
right.
This is a place where people die.
Yeah,
I don't want to be here.
Yeah, there's just some bad juju.
Yeah.
We could put it that way.
Definitely.
So, the last thing that I have here is in 2009, an episode of Ghost Adventures took place on the island, and apparently it freaked out the crew more so than any of their other episodes.
Okay, I'm gonna absolutely Google Ghost Adventures after this.
I know, right? I actually watched one of the clips.
You did?
It was disturbing. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little disturbing. I don't know if it was acting or not, but basically what happened was one of the crew claimed to be possessed. And afterwards, when he was describing, he's like, I blacked out. He's like, I don't remember anything, but except right before I blacked out, he just felt immense rage.
Whoa.
And utter hatred. He's like, I've never felt that before in my life.
If there are spirits there, they would have a lot to be pissed about.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, that is essentially the story of Poveglia. One of the most, if not the most haunted places on Earth. Is it truly haunted? You be the judge.
We all know what Steph thinks.
Yeah, Steph is yes. Case closed.
Case
Shut the
closed.
book.
This
Boom.
is fact. I want to go.
I kind of want to go too.
It's terror. I know
It's like a car crash.
Yes.
It's I know, it just slows traffic. Don't look at it. It's annoying, but you just can't not look.
You can't not look. Watch our first History for Weirdos meetup be in this haunted island.
Yeah, guys, you want to do it?
Should we all go?
Even though it's technically illegal? We're Americans.
I bet we could get special podcaster privileges.
Yeah, if this episode of Ghost Adventures, they could do it. I mean, why not History for Weirdos?
Why not History for Weirdos?
Exactly.
That was perfect for spooky season.
Right? That was
very, very spooky.
Yeah, spooky and terrifying.
And terrifying.
So my sources for this were Atlas Obscura, the Travel Channel, All That's Interesting, The Little House of Horrors, All About Venice, and of course, our favorite, Wikipedia.
Amazing. I love
Thank
this.
you.
This really could be a book or a movie. That was
Right?
so, yeah. This is a really cool place that I had never heard of.
I know. It's even just thinking about it now really gives me the heebie-jeebies.
That's very spooky. I'm excited to look up the clips, and we're excited to share some pictures with you all on Instagram.
Yeah, some of the buildings still exist to this day. So,
wow.
I mean, yeah, there's also like a church that got like destroyed there. So like
that could be good luck.
Demons.
Yeah. No.
There you go. Your Mexicanness is rubbing off on me.
I flipped you to my side. You're like, obviously, demons.
Obviously.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Weirdos, for another episode. Please, as we said at the beginning, go ahead and follow us on Instagram if you haven't already. All that information is in our show notes. And we look forward to connecting with you all next week for another spooky episode.
Absolutely. Until next time, Weirdos.
Until next time. Bye.
Cocoa Beach is your ultimate Florida beach vacation. Pack your bags and open your mind. Adventure is calling from Orlando's closest beach. Cocoa Beach is Florida's secret gem that's got it all. It's the budget-friendly, retro-cool destination that families and surfers adore. Come soak up the sun and ride the East Coast's most famous waves. Start planning your one-of-a-kind getaway now at visitspacecoast.com. That's visitspacecoast.com.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.